Hi, this is James Mercer from The Shins.
This is Shirley Manson.
This is Lo Tolhurst, co-founder of The Cure.
This is Huey Lewis giving you the story behind the song.
The Story Behind the Song is back with an exciting second season. We peel back the layers on music's most iconic hits with legendary artists like The Killers, Heart, the B-52s, Violent Femmes, Jewel, Huey Lewis, Modern English, and more. To keep the music flowing, we'll be sprinkling in classic episodes from our archives between each new one. So check out The Story Behind the Song wherever you get your podcast.
All right, Aaron, you went on a trip to the Victoria Ska and Reggae Festival. I need to hear about it.
I did. I went to the Victoria Ska and Reggae Festival. I didn't go just as a music fan. I went there to host a panel discussion on the topic of ska.
Yeah.
Actually, it was more specific than that. Yeah. I had a discussion between Vic Ruggiero from the Slackers and Jay Navarro from the Suicide Machines.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll get to that in a second. But first, we had the organizer on the podcast a while ago, right?
Dane, yes.
Yeah. So folks who want to know about the festival, they can go back and listen to that episode.
Yes. Great guy. Got to meet him and super sweet. Gave me a huge hug. Festival's got great vibes, I would say. It's like mostly in there was like two spaces. There was a like outdoor space and then there was a club space. So every night there's a show in both. And the outdoor space is the bigger space, but it starts and ends a little earlier than the club one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of fun. You can go. There's like it's ska and reggae in its truest sense. So there's like ska bands, there's just straight up reggae bands, but there's also like bands that are neither, that are just sort of they connect through the roots of the music.
So 311.
311 would be perfect, but they were not playing this year. I don't know if they've ever played, but yeah, definitely Victoria Ska and Reggae Festival. If you're listening, we got to get 311 booked.
Yeah. I just looked it up. Our episode with Dane Roberts of the Victoria Ska and Reggae Festival was episode number 73.
Episode number 73. Go give it a listen. Put a pause on this episode here. Go listen to that, then come back. But you know who else has been on the podcast already?
Who's that?
Vic Ruggiero and Jay Navarro separately.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but these were probably two of my favorite episodes we've ever done.
Yeah, they're definitely up there for me. And when you had them together, did they have a lot of shared history or not really?
So they had very little shared history, which is wild, isn't it?
That's pretty crazy. Do you think that they would have crossed paths several times?
So, I mean, the Slackers and the Suicide Machines both formed around the same time, like early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Suicide Machines was in Detroit. Slackers was in New York. Suicide Machines came from the more punk side of ska. Slackers came from a more, I'm not sure if traditional is the right word to describe where they came from, but just a more roots-oriented ska scene. So these factors led to them. I think they even said during our discussion that they played together 0 times in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was interesting to kind of like ask them questions about different moments in their careers and listen to them pipe in on each other's stories, because I think for the most part, they hadn't heard each other's stories very much either.
What was the vibe like in the space that you had this conversation in?
So we were at the club where the Suicide Machines and the Slackers would eventually play that very evening together. And it was in this sort of upstairs room. Mm-hmm. And it was like 2 p.m. And the Slackers and Suicide Machines show started around 9 p.m. So it was just a small space. I think about 30, 40 people showed up. It was a great conversation, and everyone was very attentive and listened very closely and asked some interesting questions at the end. And I think Jay and Vic had a really good time. We got into a lot of stuff, I think, that was different than what they normally talk about. I tried my best to not overlap the conversations that we had with them individually on this podcast and what I wanted to talk to them at that event.
Right. I think that's probably the best move because we've already, nobody wants to tell the same stories they've already told 1,000 times.
So we already had you listen to Dane's interview. Now go ahead and pause and then listen to the entirety of Vic and Jay's episodes. Then come back.
You got some homework to do, people.
Yeah.
And then you can listen to this.
But this episode is behind the curtain. This is a Patreon exclusive episode. So that's the next thing you need to do, right? What do they got to do, Adam?
They got to sign up for the Patreon. For $5, you get this exclusive content plus new content every week. For a little bit extra, you can get an In Defense of Ska enamel pin that you can put on your battle vest. You can also get a In Defense of Ska tote bag to carry your records in that you're buying. And then you'll be all set. You'll be ready to go. You'll be fitted, suited, ready to go.
And you know what you get at even the $5 level is you get a Ska Defender card, which is probably the most important thing you'll ever own.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
So rather than listen to us, I mean, you guys have already done so much homework already.
Yep. We're going to keep this short. You should head behind the curtain now and listen to this conversation with Vic and Jay at the Victoria Ska and Reggae Festival.
I wrote the book In Defense of Ska. I have a second edition coming out in October.
All right, that's all we have for you today. But if you want to hear the rest of this interview with Jay and Vic, guess what? It's time for you to sign up for the Patreon. That's right. For only $5 a month, you'll get access to this content, all our other exclusive content, access to the Discord, and for a little bit more, you can get a cool In Defense of Ska enamel pin or a tote bag. That's right. So head on over to the Patreon, support the podcast. Ska now more than ever.
Greetings from Long Time No See, the podcast. Every week, we'll be inviting two blindfolded comedians to answer a series of questions about their careers, lives, and opinions. Now, let's remove those blindfolds and start the show.
Hi!
What would your opening line with your celebrity crush be?
Loved you in Harry Potter.
Worst date you've been on?
A man bit my neck mole off once.
You did what?
A man bit my neck mole off. Oh my God, Jack almost fell off his chair.
Be sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast.